Hello. Just caught me checking whether I actually had any hot chocolate still left around of my mush. Um, Good evening, Jules Wyman here. I am just going to check that this has gone live, seeing as it does take a little while for it to show up in people's stream. And so I just want to check on my homepage because I can't actually see whether it's gone live. And there we go. Yes, marvelous. So apparently, according to Facebook anyway, it has said that it's creating automatic captions. I don't know if it's doing that. It's not doing that. I can't see that. So if you're getting captions, fantastic, let me know. And hopefully they won't be saying something really random and stupid, that they'll actually be saying what I'm saying. So anyway, good evening for those of you that are joining me right now live. Do drop down, although it is jotting, into the comments box and say hi, because it would be lovely to give you a shout out and say hi this evening. No, I won't need those on. I've written fairly big this evening. So how are you doing on this particularly glorious sunny evening here in York anyway? You know when you think you've cleaned the windows and then the sun comes around and hits that window and you look at it and think, I'm pretty sure that's even worse than it was when I first did it, but hey ho. So yeah, do drop down and say hi, or give me some thumbs up to let me know that you can hear this okay, and see me okay. For those of you who are watching this on the recording, I apologize. This beginning little bit is always a little bit of a waffle, just whilst people get themselves sorted to be able to watch this live. And if you are watching this on the recording, on the replay, whatever you prefer to call it, then please do interact in exactly the same way as those gorgeous people do on the lives, because it means that it doesn't mean at all. Whilst I might not be able to interact with you verbally, I do go back and type comments in, and even if it is just saying hello, I do go back and do that. So make sure that you join in the conversation. Hello, Tracy, my lovely. How are you doing over on that side of the pond? I don't think it's 7 p.m. there for you. I think it's probably early afternoon. I think you're on the East Coast. I hope you're doing well. Maybe been out on one of your walks, climbing that hill near where you live. And I hope your wonderful family are all well. And the same to everybody else as well. I hope you're all doing well. I am acutely aware that for everybody, the situation that we're experiencing, whilst it's being bulleted and headlined as being that we're all experiencing the same thing, we're not at all. And I think we all need to recognize that for some people, this is one of the worst things that's ever happened to them. And then at the other end of the extreme, you've got people who are, life hasn't actually changed that much for them, and they're still getting on and getting on with their lives, and everybody else is somewhere in between. So I think we need to be mindful of that in this situation. So I'm glad, you're climbing the hill after this, brilliant. Don't be running up there too fast just yet. I've now got Kate Bush running up that hill going through my head. So first of all, before I get into this evening's topic about it not being my fault, I want to talk about something very, very sexy this evening. I do want to give a shout out to those of you who went over to Instagram and followed me on Instagram, Jules Wyman UK. Thank you so much. I have got more than 1,000 followers on there now. I'm not somebody who posts every 2 minutes of where I'm at, who I'm with, what I'm up to, and things like that. It's just not my style, to be quite honest. I do post stuff on there, and I am doing my best to do more, but I don't actually find social media particularly easy, and it's not one of my favorite places to hang out, but I do like hanging out with you guys. So I recognize that if I want to do that, then I need to do the other. So yeah, thank you very much for that. And also last week's video, if you haven't watched last week's video about how I've lost confidence, then go and watch it. At the moment, as I aired, I just checked the number before I hit live on this. 831 people have viewed that video so far, and it's one of the longest videos I've done as well. It's about 47 minutes, I think, something like that. And what I find interesting is, because usually videos get, I mean, there is a video that's got over 1,000 views, but the majority of them, it's somewhere between 200 and 400 views are obviously not live, because I get about 5 to 25 people on here live, but it's people watch the replay. And that's what, to me, is why I do it, because then it can be shared. And I know so many of you shared this in a number of places last week. And again, I'm extremely grateful, and please keep up the great work of sharing. That's the whole point. I know I bang on about it, but it's my way of giving back. And that's what I want to do, and help people. So thank you so much for that, for following me on other social media platforms as well, because then that does help the more people I've got following me, it does help my reach. So if you prefer Instagram, or if you prefer YouTube, or if you prefer LinkedIn or Twitter, I have got a profile on all of those. So please do feel free to go and connect with me on all of those. And as I say, I am doing my best to come up with multiple different ways to connect with you on there. If there are specific things that you would like me to talk about, or if you have specific questions, you can direct message me on any of those platforms. And on this one, obviously, they do go straight to me. Nobody else sees them. So it is me that responds. It's not anybody else. So if you've got questions or specific things you'd like me to talk about, whether it be on Facebook Live or in a video or in one of my blogs, then please let me know, and I will can do that. That's no problem at all. And for those of you that are joining live now, please join Tracy and myself and say hi in the comments. So it's great to have a conversation going. Okay, so this evening I do want to talk about something highly sexy. It is one of the sexiest topics that I could talk about, which is responsibility. Not sexy at all. I know, I get that. But it's something that, it came up in conversation with my coach last week. We were talking about it. Rob, bless your heart. Thank you so much for sharing so many times, and good evening. And Fiona, how lovely to have you here as well. I saw that you did another video today, but I haven't had the chance to look at it yet. So well done you for doing those, Fiona. I think it's fantastic. So I was having a conversation last week with my coach, and the word responsibility came up in relation to something else we were talking about. And I've been thinking about it ever since, really. And it's something that I've thought a lot about over the last few years. I wouldn't say consistently, but on a number of occasions. And the thing that I suppose it really came to prominence for me, first of all, I'm going to go about this in probably a bit of an odd way, but this is a conversation, this is not a presentation. So I have got things I would like to cover, but it's not in a formulated way. So please feel free to chip in at any point. Please don't wait for me to invite you to type. If you've got questions, thoughts, comments, or whatever, then please do type away. One of the things, like with pretty much everything, I think it's always important for us to check in when a word is said, what goes on for ourselves. So responsibility, when I'm talking with clients, I often, and even in workshops, I often ask people to think about what's the weight, how heavy is that word to you? And I would say that for the majority of people, it's a heavy weight. When they think about responsibility, or responsibility is spoken about, they think of something that's heavy. Or you get those that are like, no, I like responsibility. And I don't think, maybe one person off the top of my head that I can think of, but I would say the majority of people either say that it's heavy or that it's medium. It's okay. It's, I think one person said that it was light. And I was definitely in the heavy camp before, of thinking about responsibility. It's heavy, it's a burden, it's awful, and something actually to be avoided. And I think that part of that is because I don't think this is overt. I can't point to anything overt that says or does this, but I do think that it is subversive beautifully put. That's not the right word, but that's what popped into my head. It's a subverse kind of like messaging that responsibility is tough, hard, and what's the point? You might as well hand it over to somebody else. And the thing that I notice is that people take far too much responsibility for things that aren't their responsibility, and don't take responsibility for the things that are actually their responsibility. So people take responsibility for their children, and I'm not talking about littlies. I'm talking about I would say from 12 years upwards, kids have more responsibility than they are often given. And I mean responsibility in like decision making and choices about what they want to study or what they want to wear or eat or various things like that. That tends to be taken away, and it's the adult quite often will take responsibility for those things rather than it handing over to that young person. I think that we can end up taking responsibility for our friends and how our friends feel, what's going on in our friends' life. We might do the same with our work colleagues. One of the things that comes up very often in conversations, and this is very often with senior management actually, is that they think it's their responsibility to protect those that work beneath them. So therefore that will mean that they will end up doing work or trying to shield them from information that's going up on at a higher level, that actually if they knew some of it, don't have to know all of it, but it might make things easier for them. But they take on this kind of protector role, and it's my responsibility to make sure they don't get worried or upset or angry or pressured or whatever the way that they might dialogue it. And we end up taking on all of this kind of responsibility in that sense for other people. And yet when it comes to actually to me, most of that is outside of our circle of influence. In other words, it's not within our control. We can't do anything about it. But don't get me started on the word control, because I really need to do a much more in-depth one of these at some point about control. And then when it actually comes to something that we have responsibility for, such as our health, our wealth, our relationships, our whole MOT, body, how it works, our career, the decisions we make, we say it's not my fault. Hence the title of this evening's talk. We hand it over to somebody else. And I am not passing judgment in no way, shape or form on anybody else if they are doing this, by the way, because 100% this is where I was. And I would say this is still something I'm working on, of recognizing actually I've got responsibility for ... And so that's the first thing my invitation would be for you to think about. And that's actually, let's put that out to you. How many of you, hey, Sherry, how lovely. Look, Tracy, Sherry, Tracy, Sherry, Tracy, you're both here together. How wonderful is that? How high could my voice go in that little moment? And Caroline at the same time as well. Good evening, Caroline. So that's my real first question, although Rob has done a wonderful response, which I'm going to pull up on the screen. What I would love to know who you think you have responsibility for, and what you think you have responsibility for. Let's have some comments going in the thing below. Apologies for the noise in the background. My dishwasher has just decided to have a little communication with you all. So Rob has put, responsibility to me means taking ownership of something and taking pride in having the responsibility of something. You should always reward yourself at the end of a responsibility. We can learn a lot from having responsibility. We may make, I think that's meant to be, mistakes. And even though these mistakes are often seen as being negative, they shouldn't be. We can learn from mistakes and make further responsibilities better in the future. So it's interesting. And I think what you've put there, Rob, is what most people do when they think of responsibilities. They think of it in the context of somebody giving them a responsibility in a work context. So I've got responsibility for delivery of this project, or leading this team, or completing that task, or whatever it may be. And therefore it's our responsibility to do the best with that thing and deliver that thing. And then, as you say, you can take pride at that, you can learn from any mistakes you've made from that, but it's your responsibility to do your very best where that's concerned. And I get that, but what I'm thinking about, the kind of responsibility I'm thinking about, is where we think we have responsibility. I mean, this is a conversation again that I have with so many people, that it's their responsibility to make somebody else happy, whether that be their parents, whether that be their children, whether that be their spouse, partner, lover, Uncle Bob, whoever it is, that it's their the other person's emotional well-being or emotional state is their responsibility. And the question that I very often will say to people is, do you think that that's empowering or disempowering to the other person? If you've got if you've got responsibility for their emotional state, are you empowering or disempowering that person? And no one yet has come back and said, oh no, I'm absolutely empowering them by believing that I have full responsibility for their emotional state. Everyone recognizes that by saying you have responsibility for how that person experiences life, even a baby, you don't have responsibility for their experience. You're doing your best to care for them. But you know, if you've got a child who's awake at 2-3 in the morning because they've got colic, it's not your fault that they have colic. It's not your fault that a child's woken up because they've had a nightmare. It's your responsibility as a parent with a small child or a young person, to do your best to be able to show them that you know, that they're perfectly safe at that moment in time, as long as they are, obviously. But it's not your responsibility to make them feel better. And the moment we start doing that and taking these responsibilities on, then the moment that person is upset, worried, frustrated, angry, which so many people are at this moment in time, you can't forcibly make them change their experience. What you can do is have a conversation with them, of course, and you can help them look at things in a different way, and that may help them to be able to see things, but it's not your responsibility. It's not, absolutely not your, especially, I do think when I was training in India, they had this philosophy and this teaching that between the age of 0 and 6, and I may have shared this before, that between the age of 0 and 6, you treat a child as if they're a king or a queen. They have no responsibility because they're the king or the queen. They don't touch anything. From the age of 6 to 12, you treat them as if they're a prince or a princess. In other words, you start handing over more responsibility to them. From the age of 12 onwards, you treat them as a friend. In other words, you start to treat them as an equal and recognize there's responsibilities there for both. And I really do see people who map that out have far healthier relationships with their children, I think. So Tracy says, it took a while to get here, but I am responsible for all aspects of me. I had to learn it. I had to learn to let go of feeling responsible for others. Well, Tracy, that's amazing. And especially as I know that you're a teacher, that can't be easy. And I'm not saying that this is easy, by the way, but I'm saying it's well worth doing and well worth taking the step towards, because if you're caught in the land of it's my fault if they don't succeed, or if they're not feeling great, or if they're feeling sad or angry or whatever, it's my fault. It's my responsibility that they shouldn't feel that way. Then you're kind of caught in a world of victimhood and martyrdom, which is not going to be resourceful or serving or helpful to you in any way, shape or form. Let me know if that makes sense. And also, if you agree, let me know. So Rob says, and good evening, those of you who are just joining. By the way, do drop down and join everybody else by saying hi. It's always great to be able to give you a shout out. Rob says, now you've just said that, I've seen it in a whole new way. I always try to make people happy, put everyone before myself, and I need to learn it's not my responsibility. It's not your responsibility. And then you followed on with any tips on how to let go of feeling responsible for other people. I just can't switch my feelings off like that. Well, Tracy, as somebody who's been learning to do that, if you've got any top tips, then feel free to put them in there. I know I'm going to be giving some thought on that. First and foremost, Rob, I think it's important for you to just acknowledge, my personal view is the moment that comes up of I've got to make them happy, is notice that and just take a deep breath in and go, it's not my responsibility. And also, if I am trying to make them, this is what I've always said to myself, if I'm trying to make them feel something, then I am trying to manipulate them to be how I want them to be in order for me to feel comfortable. See, the thing is, if we're trying to change someone's emotional state, that's because we're uncomfortable with the emotional state that they're in. Now, that's not my responsibility. My responsibility is not changing them. My responsibility is about understanding where I'm at and what's going on for me, because I can do something about that. I can't do something about the other stuff that's going on. So therefore, I need to take a step away from that. So that would be my first thoughts on it, is just recognize it's not my responsibility, and I'm actually disempowering them. I always think to myself, you're being a dictator. If you're trying to manipulate somebody to be how you want them to be, then you're being a dictator. So, step away from it in that sense. Don't know what that kind of dance move was there, but that would be my first thing. And I would encourage all of you to think about creating a list of the things that you do have responsibility for. So it's interesting, isn't it? Because I don't think I was ever taught, and I'm just trying to scan through. I can remember being taught stuff about taking care of my teeth at school. I can remember this whole big drive of, when you chew those tablets and they make your teeth sharp as to whether you brush your teeth properly or not. I can remember that. I can distinctly remember that. I can remember which classroom it was outside of. And because I know that, I will have been about 4 or 5 when that happened. But I don't remember. So I knew I had responsibility for my teeth. But I also was taught that if there was anything wrong with them, don't worry, the dentist will fix it. And there's this thing that can go on for us, because there's a part of our brain that is still so primal that it's just like, yeah, whatever, I'll just chill out and I don't have to do anything. So if somebody goes, oh, it's okay, I've got it, it goes, all right, then fair enough. So whilst I know it's my responsibility to brush my teeth, well, it doesn't matter if anything goes wrong, just go to the dentist, they fix it. And I think there's so many areas of our lives where we've kind of had that drummed into us and conditioned into us. I don't recall ever being taught that it was my responsibility to take care of my health, to take care of this physical thing that I was in. I don't recall anybody ever telling me anything like that at all. So it's taken me until I was probably in my 30s, I think, before I actually recognized that I have responsibility for my health, no one else. And when you start taking responsibility for your health now, whatever age you are, then you can start making some changes for yourself. I do apologize. I've got the most itchiest nose right on the end here. Geeta's just come up on right at that point and said, good evening, Geeta. Definitely, it's why the NHS is always overwhelmed. When we take responsibility for things, we can actually help the external world. It's the same as our wealth. Now, for me, some of you, if you've followed me before for a while, you'll know that I went through a stage where I got myself significantly into debt on credit cards and literally, not metaphorically, hid underneath the duvet when the credit card company was ringing to try and find out where their money was. And I was just like, la, 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 it's all going to go away. But of course it doesn't. And I wasn't taking responsibility for my actions. Now there was a quote. I read this yesterday. I read this book yesterday, In the Sunshine, hence the little bit of a tan. And I loved this quote that I saw. We put a lot more effort into becoming successful. Oh, no, hang on a second. Sorry. We concentrate more on making money than on figuring out how to spend it optimally. I thought that was a brilliant quote. I'll read it again. We concentrate more on making money than on figuring out how to spend it optimally. And that's absolutely true. I can attest for that. I know how to spend money, and we're encouraged to do that, right? Absolutely encouraged to do that. But how many of us are taught, how to invest money or how to save money? I certainly wasn't, and haven't been. So, there are all these things that we need to learn how to take responsibility for. And yes, it isn't easy. And yes, we do have to put the effort in. But do you know what? That's when we are empowering ourselves. The moment we are, oh, it's not my fault, I can't do it, it's somebody else's, then we're disempowering ourselves, and that's it. We're, technical term, buggered. So Tracy said in reply to, I think this was in reply to Rob's, have you ever heard of the term askers and givers? Actually asking for what you want or what others need versus guessing the responses to those questions. And it's so funny you should say that, Tracy. I haven't heard of it in that term, but I was talking with a client today about her conversation with a client who they were talking about communication within their work. And he was saying, well, because obviously everyone's working remotely. And he said, yeah, well, we're speaking once a week and I'm sure that's enough for everybody. And she said, do you know that? And he said, what do you mean? She said, well, have you actually asked? And I think it's such a beautiful thing that you've said there about, actually asking people for what they want, rather than how often we just throw out this guess and just go, well, that's what I think they want, and I'll just get on with this other thing, rather than taking responsibility to ask people what they want and be prepared for any answer, not be prepared for the answer that you want them to give you, because then you might as well just not ask the question, but be open and be prepared to be responsive to the question that they, or the answer that they give. And one of the breakthroughs for me, for this, which I meant to say right at the beginning and I completely got sidetracked, is when I saw the word responsibility written down as two separate words. And that for me has really helped me make a shift and start to see the word in a different way. It's two words: response, ability, the ability to respond, as opposed to reacting. So in other words, acting, pretending and doing it again and repeating it, whereas responding and the ability to respond is actually taking that time to think about something, whether it be a few seconds, a few moments, a few hours, a few days, and then responding. That's going to give you another shift in order to be able to look at it in a different way. So Robbie, took me some serious personal work to make the switch to asking. When you ask, you need to be prepared to hear things. Tracy, we're in sync. I hadn't seen that. That you may initially sting your feelings, but over time you'll begin to let go of feeling that level of responsibility for others' thoughts and feelings. I love that, Tracy. And I think it's so important to recognize that this stuff doesn't just happen overnight. Please remember, I have been professionally working in this field for 15 years in October. And I have been, I can't actually remember. Oh my gosh, I've just had a realization. Okay, so I know that I started looking into and having conversations with people, and it was more around spiritual development when I was about 18 or 19. So that's years ago. That's 27, 8 years ago. My gosh. So this has been an ongoing personal process for me. I work with my coach intensely every couple of weeks as well. So, this isn't something that I pick up and put down. And as Tracy has so rightly said, and I love the word that you've used, of serious personal work. And it is serious. It's a commitment. And it's not a commitment as in all intense, have to be intense about this, but it's intense as in serious as in, okay, I want to see. And you can do it as an experiment, for example, over the next 7 days, Rob, right? And I'm talking to Rob because he's asked the question, but obviously this is for everybody, is maybe, Rob, for the next 7 days, you take it seriously. I am just going to make a note of every time I think I've got responsibility for somebody else, and I am going to just take a step back from it. I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm just going to take a step back whenever I can and whenever I notice it across the next 7 days. And it might be that you need to set reminders in your phone or stick Post-its up or whatever it is. But just by doing that, just by shifting and taking that step back, might be your practice for the next 7 days for you to get serious about it. And this is serious work. And it's interesting because I've heard a number of intellectuals be talk, and I say intellectuals as in academics, talking about this over the last sort of like 2-3 years, that young people, they are noticing that young people are craving responsibility. Young people, as in late teens, early 20s, craving responsibility because they feel it's being taken away from them, and they don't need to do this because someone else has got it, and they don't need to do that. And they're like, no, I want to take responsibility for my own life. I don't want to be feeling like I'm entitled and don't have to do anything. I want to be able to do this. So it's very interesting that there's that shift and that craving for that. That's what that was, craving. Rob says, Jules will tell you I'm quite an emotional, unstable person. I think that's a bit unfair, personally. I wouldn't say that at all. I have been having some counselling and it's helped me massively. I am a sensitive soul and jump straight into emotional feelings as soon as something is said, rather than taking a moment to think about what is being said and taking it out of context, how the person has said it to me. So there you go, without even reading that. That's why I think that taking that step back, Rob, might give you an opportunity to be able to do that. And just glancing down at what Tracy said there, just breathe. I know that sounds such a simple kind of flippant thing to say at various points, but honestly, whenever I notice stuff bubbling up for me, taking deep breaths, it helps you get out of your head and come into this experience a bit more, and potentially get into the present moment, which is where we can step away from all the psychological crap that goes on in all of our heads. It's not just people who are being brave, basically, and going to have counselling, mentoring or coaching or other kind of support where that's concerned. So that's a simple thing that you can do, is being able to take a step back. But one of the reasons I wanted to bring this topic to the conversation this evening is because I think with the situation globally as it stands at this moment in time, however you are being affected or infected, pardon the puns if they sound like puns, but do you know what, this could be a really great opportunity for you to take responsibility. And I noticed that for me, a number of times when I take responsibility, one of my friends that has this phrase of, you need to just put on your big girl pants. And I think sometimes I feel like I'm going, yeah, right. And I imagine I'm pulling them on and going, right, come on. And I walk toward this thing. And it's a story's just popped into my head, and it was from a client, and a client had been ignoring a particular situation in her life over quite a long period of time. And it was a very serious situation. And these letters were coming through the door in relation to this particular situation. And anytime one came through, she was shoving it in a drawer. It was one of those kind of like, shove it away. And then if I can't see it, I haven't got responsibility for it. And we had a coaching session, and she was like, right, I'm going to go home and her only thing that she decided was, I just want to open the drawer, get all of the letters out, open them, and then see what I need to do from there. But that's my first step, is get the letters out and open them all and decide and see what needs to happen from there. And she said that rather than the disempowering of shoving this away, I can distinctly remember getting a text message from her. It was about 8 o'clock at night. And she sent me a text message going, whilst it's not sorted, I feel like I'm at least taking a step in the right direction, because I've just read them all and I now know what I need to do, rather than this kind of like, la, la, la. And I think that's the same for us all in whatever situation we're in, whether it be in relation to work or family or health or wealth or career or whatever it may be. When you take responsibility and go, right, what do I need to do? What can I do? How can I do that? What's the smallest first step I can take, and take it, and then go, right, what's the next smallest step, and take it, and so on and so forth. Before you know it, you're starting to do things. And in my personal experience, it's kind of a little bit like that pride you're talking about, Rob, of going, do you know what? I can do this. It may be uncomfortable. It may be something I don't revel in, But do you know what? I can do this. And now I find myself picking up the phone to have conversations or having to write emails to people or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, this is uncomfortable, but I know I can do it, and I will do it. And I'll sit and I'll do whatever I need to do. And then afterwards, I'm like, okay, I can do that. So I'm just curious as to what will happen when you take responsibility for yourself and your life. I don't know. I don't know. So Tracy says, also use your breath to take a pause before responding. Absolutely true. I love that, Tracy. The only thing I do not like about this new studio, I love being able to bring your comments on. That's really great. That's a joy to be able to do that. I can't like your comments on here. So I don't like that I can't like your comments, but know that I'm mentally liking your comments as each of them come through. And there's a bravo. I love that photo, Tracy. I know that that's is an old photo, I believe, because I think your girl is a lot older than that now, but I could be wrong. But I still love that photo. So yes, I hope that you have found this conversation helpful, giving you a different way of looking at responsibility and potentially an encouragement for you to take responsibility. You know, when people, I've had this discussion with people before when they're like, you know, we must save the NHS, and I'm going, so what are you doing to look after your health then? And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm saying, well, you say you want to save the NHS. For those of you who aren't from the UK, I apologise. The NHS is our national health system, which is always being challenged and pushed and overrun and all that sort of thing. And so when people say they want to help the national health system, our NHS, I'm like, okay, so how are you taking care of your health? Well, what do you mean? Well, if you take care of your health, if you do the very best you can and take responsibility for your health, imagine if everyone in this country did that. You're still going to have people who need, you know, cancer treatment or inhalers or, you know, diabetes treatment. You're still going to have some people who need those things or other things. But imagine if everybody did that globally. Imagine what could happen for the health system globally if everyone did that. That would be pretty cool, wouldn't it? We all started taking responsibility for ourselves. It was one of the questions I may have said before. I will round up soon. I realize I'm going over again. Maybe I need to put more structure to these conversations so that I don't overrun as much. But I, you know, one of the questions I asked when I was in hospital 2 years ago, and I asked this to every medical staff that came and spoke to me, what do you think I could be doing to help myself get better? And every single person, from students, because I asked, because it's a teaching hospital, and I asked the students right the way through to registrars and consultants and senior doctors and blah, blah, blah. I asked every single one of them, and every single one of them had exactly the same answer. I don't know. Don't think there's anything you can do. And yet I've gone to all of these other wonderful people, such as Geeta, who was an amazing support for me during that and still is an amazing support, that I just go, what could I be doing? And they're like, well, have you thought of this? And are you doing this? And what about this? And what about that? And it's everything from breathing, meditation, different supplements, various things to put in or take out of my diet. There's so many things that I've started to do. I can do that. I can take responsibility for that. So I'm just wondering what you could take responsibility for. It is a responsibility, responsibility, and you are so welcome, Rob. You know, I was talking to a colleague of mine about these webinars. I'm running some more webinars. Please, 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 blush, blush, says Geeta. Please, please, please do share this with people. Because I'm running these webinars again. We've got another 4. I've got one tomorrow evening with my wonderfully amazing friend Tabitha Jane, who is going to talk about nature. And she's just such a font of knowledge of the importance of nature for us and our connection with that. And we're going to have a conversation around that. And then on Thursday, I'm having a conversation with another, these are all amazing women actually. And they're only amazing women because in the sense of, I feel like I need to justify why it's only women, because that's who I've reached out to this time. We had some men last time. I'm not being exclusive. It's just happened that way. Michelle is talking about how you engage your if you're working from home, and what leaders can do, what employers can do, what employees can do. Again, comes down to responsibility with a lot of it. Then I'm going to do one next Monday, so I'm going to be doing double webinars. So it'll be that at 12:30, and then my Facebook Live Monday night, which is an open forum, because believe it or not, it's the last Monday of the month. That's a third of the year gone. Crazy, right? And that's going to be about living fearlessly. You need to make sure that you register. Ding, 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 ding. All of the links for all of them are below. Register. And then even if you can't make it live, you'll get the recording. And then on the Wednesday at 12:30, my other amazing friend Maxine and I are going to be having a conversation about how to stay connected to peace when the world seems to be going kind of crazy around you. And Maxine and I were talking a lot about that today, and about the various different ways that we can do that. And there was a point that I was going to make connected to something else I was talking about, but I've lost my thread now, so I will stop. But please do, I rely on you guys, as I said right at the beginning. If it wasn't for, like, Rob has shared this video already 10 times this evening, for which I'm truly grateful. If it wasn't down to you guys following me, liking this page, inviting other people to like the page, following me on other social media, sharing these links, then I would be talking to myself. Which is, you know, which I do most of the day. I do think that if there was a video watching me, sometimes I think I potentially could get locked up for some of the crazy conversations I have with myself. But I make myself laugh. So thank you so much. And as ever, if you have topics you would like me to cover, if you have maybe you've got something, a webinar that you would like to share, or you know somebody that you think would be a great guest for me to talk to, then please do let me know. But I just want to say thank you and remind you that if you need support, then know that this is here for you, whether it's on this forum. It's what it's here for free, then please do let me know. If it's something more specific and you want to look at booking in a one-to-one session, at the moment I'm wavering. I usually only do a 6-month program, but I'm kind of wavering that. So if you want to work and just have a one-to-one session with me, a one-off, then message me and we can get a time and date sorted out for that. Or if it's something that you would like to look at for your staff, or whatever it may be, if there is a way that you think I can help, then please do reach out and let me know, and I will do everything I can to support, whether that's through me or some of the resources that I've been utilising and have such amazing connections to be able to help you with. So I think that's enough. I'm thirsty, actually. That's 43 minutes. Good Lord. Could I raise a topic, Jules? It's regarding jealousy. What causes jealousy, and what can you do to overcome jealousy? That's a good one, Rob. Let me just make a note of that, and I will create something for you. It won't be next week, because next week's an open forum, although if you want to jump on there and ask it then, although I think that might be a good topic to have in a bigger conversation, to be honest. So maybe don't. Let me do that as let me go and do some thinking about that, because I haven't got an immediate answer and I would like to do some thinking around it and see what comes up. Yeah. So remember to register for the webinars, and I look forward to catching up with you soon. Take care of yourselves, take responsibility for yourselves, and thank you for joining me and sharing all of this, liking all of this, and I look forward to catching up with you again soon. So take care of yourself, and of course, in a world where you can be anything, please be kind. Take care. Bye.